of this, it is just how you get to Carnegie Hall. It is practice, practice, practice. So our intent here is to show people a few of these Excel things and then to give you an opportunity to practice it on your own. And Kirk and I both want to say, everybody, if you are doing your classwork or doing your regular work and just can't get Excel to do something, feel very free to reach out to Kirk or me and say, gosh, I can't get this pivot table to work, or gosh, this VLOOKUP isn't working. So, because it's, this is one of the many things for which time on task is a great predictor of success. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Kirk.
Thanks, Carrie. Yeah, as Emily was saying in the beginning, I'm not covering everything that's in the class, or we need 2-hour sessions, maybe hour and a half, but I'm covering the things that Carrie and I think are the most important. These are the topics that we reinforce in the class with our students. And after this, Emily and I are working, and for the staff, it will probably be in the same Blackboard shell that we had for the faculty training during the staff training during the faculty meeting. But after this, and after every session, I will put the template up that you could download in Emily's email this morning. I will have the master solutions in another Excel file, and I will have the PowerPoint brief and the video database. So if you want to go between and have questions on something, you can check it out. And as Carrie said, just like Carrie and I know. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. I'll try to get started. Did I lose control? There we go. These are the basic things from week 1, where you kind of need throughout the whole Excel course is some ideas on basic math, some basic functions, the old operator order, and if you forget a set of parentheses, it will kick you in the butt, and then some formatting, and finally referencing, which some of our students have a lot of fun with. First, I want to talk again. I've talked a little about this at the faculty meeting, but I want to kind of bring up and show you, we have a database. And if you can, I think you should be able to, let me see, just to make sure you guys can see that. Yep, you can see it, okay. We have one per each week. This week we're going over week 1 basic Excel stuff, and it's broken into the topics of the course. If there's some introduction videos, we include it in the beginning, and then we have, in this week, we have formatting, we have functions, some product, and we have operator order, and finally referencing. And the videos for the class are the ones that aren't colored. They're the ones with the white text. And as you can see here, it's got a link to go to them in lynda.com. We have some YouTube videos in here too, where lynda.com didn't have it. How long the video is in minutes and seconds, a brief overview, and we'll take you right to it. The yellow ones are intro. They may not have any Excel in it, and if they do, I usually state that, but it's something, if you're not as familiar as Excel, it's a good place to start. And this section doesn't have any. Let me get to the section here. As you can see, there's some light blue for Macs. Lynda.com, as I mentioned at the faculty meeting, has about 11 courses in there for Excel 2016 for Macs, about 18 for PCs, and Apple and Microsoft are still not totally playing well in the sandbox. So there's some things that are not quite as easy as doing on a PC. So Carrie and I have tried to include the associated videos for Mac, so you can see how to do it with your computer if you were a Mac user. And then finally, as we found all these videos, and we didn't want to get rid of them, they could be used in some of the other MSOM courses. We highlighted those in green. So they're not covered in our Excel course, but they're available. So we'll have this Excel video database for you on in the Blackboard shell when we get there. So let's get started. I want to go over some basic math. And it's basic math, but if we're around in, I don't know if it was the 60s, but the 70s and 80s with the Texas Instruments, Excels are kind of like that. In the Texas Instrument calculators, you had to enter the equal sign first, then the equation and enter. And that's kind of like what you have to do. To do addition, it's equal 3 plus 2 with a plus sign, subtractions with a minus sign, multiplications with the asterisk, and divisions with the slash that you have there. And you'll see on each one of these slides as we go through, the videos for the PCs will be in black and for the Macs will be in blue. So I'll have that on, so you got a quick reference, you know which video to go back to. So let's get a chance here to go through, and I've set up this template, and we're going to go through some of these equations for you. And what I've done is I put the answers what they should be, but I didn't put the equations, so let you guys work on your own. And I don't care about cell reference right now. We'll get that to the end of this session. But go ahead and take a couple moments and put in these equations for the 4 equations you see on slide 4, 3 plus 2, 4 minus 2, 2 times 6, and 6 divided by 2. And then I'll go through and work them. If you got any questions, just turn on your mic and ask.
Hey, Kirk, can you flip back to the PowerPoint slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think I have the equations for the rest of the template. That's a good idea. I didn't put it on the template here. So thank you, Emily. 3 plus 2, 4 minus 2, 2 times 6, and 6 divided by 2. Okay. To do it simply, I'm going to do it just with numbers first. Equals 3 plus 2, you see the plus sign, equals 4 minus 2. I know this is real easy, equals 2 times 6. But I actually see in a midterm today grading people using the asterisk instead of the power symbol, which we'll get into the next session, and equals 6 divided by 2. So it's pretty straightforward. You can see as I highlight the cell what the equation is with the simple operators, plus, minus, times, and divide. And if you want to get, do it with cell references the way I usually do it, equals 3 plus 2, and do that type of thing. So equals 4 minus 2, and you can do it both ways. I think this one is pretty straightforward, but the biggest thing is understand what the keys in Excel are for multiplication and division. And again, they're the asterisk and the division sign, or the slash. Any questions on basic math? Okay. Let's move on to basic functions. And I'm going to not put it in slideshow so I can go back and forth a little bit easier for you all. Okay, and I'm going to talk about first, well, I'll talk about the whole slide, then I go show you where you find all these things. There's many different ways you can get the general functions, and I'm just going to show you with the basic ones of sum, product, and sum product. You can just start typing in a cell, and the function will come up. And again, I will show you this. Go to the formulas tab and the function library, and you can find the function. You can go to the formulas tab, and there's an auto sum pull down menu. The same thing on the home tab, and I'll show you those. You can also go tell me what you want to do. So I will go to those. I've got some screenshots here and that. But sum, ooh, good thing I'm looking at this. Carrie, I missed this. You can't get a product if you sum numbers. So product, you're just putting a sum, and it's either array or a bunch of numbers separated by commas. Product, an array or some numbers separated by comments. And the sum product is, you got to have the same, boy, that's why I took freshman remedial English in college. The array's got to have the same dimensions, and we'll show you that here in an example problem here. But first, let me go to here, and show you, and I have the equations and template, but I want to show you all the different ways where you can find it. Let's start with sum. If I want to add 3 plus 2, I can just start typing in equals sum 3, 2. Same answer we got on the other sheet. I probably put my cursor in the way, so let me try that again. Equals sum. You see, start typing and you get a bunch of, the more you type, the closer you get to your product, and as soon as you get to your function, and as soon as you find it, you can go ahead and select it, see what it is, keep typing, then it'll open up so you can put your 3, 2 in it, and that's one way you can do a basic function. Another way, and I never really use this tab, I don't know if it's been in there a while, and Kirk just didn't look at it until started teaching with Carrie on the Excel course, but this formula tab, it's great. It's got, you got to know which area it is. If not, you might have to check a couple different areas, but you've got financial formulas, the logical, if, and things like that, text formulas, date and time, lookup and reference, math and trig, and more functions. And more is where you get a lot of the statistical ones that what we use in week 2 and beyond. But since we're just talking basic sum, product, and sum product, that's in here. So you can scroll down here until you find sum. And when you click on a function going this route, you get this function argument dialog box. You can either put array in these numbers, or you can put individual numbers. And it gives you the definition or what the function does here in this first line. And then when you have your cursor in a cell, it tells you what goes in those cells. So I could just go in here and put 3, 2, and it will get the same answer as we've had before. I want to show another part from this is if you really want to learn more, and we try not to tell our students because we don't give them internet capability all that time, but this will take you to the internet, to the Microsoft site. Down the bottom is, let's see, did I miss something there? Oh yeah, you can see what your answer is right down here, formula result. You see it over here too. But if you're unsure on that, want more details, this help on this function will take you to the Microsoft support.office.com. So if you're not sure about a function, you can find there's usually examples in a video. So you have that available too. Also, let me get out of this. If you're not sure what function, you can do this from any place in any one of these folders, math and trig, more functions, date and time. You can go to the bottom and you can click insert function, and you can type a brief description of what you want to do. Add numbers. There it comes up with the sum. Or if you know what the equation is, you can do it, and then you can just go ahead and select and you get that same dialog box. Some quick links. If you look over here, the sum sign here, you can click here and you can just do a sum from there, and it'll get you the equation like when we typed it in. Also through this, which we won't get to, but you can do average, you can do count, max and min. Then you go to more functions and you get that insert function dialog box that we had before. If you don't want to go to the formula page, you can go to the home tab, and it's real small. It used to be bigger, but in 2016 when they added more stuff, you got the same thing here with on the right in the editing section. And then finally, you can go to tell me what you do. This is not internet, but you can go get help with sum that's within Excel, and we allow this to our students here. And you can go through and you click that and give the sum function. Very simple, what you had on office.com you saw when I pulled that up. But there's lots of different ways to get help on functions. So before I do the problems, any questions on how you can find functions and what are the ways the many million ways Excel allows you to bring it up. Okay, so, and I cheated. Greg, you didn't hear that, but I cheated. And I took some problems from our Excel course just to kind of show examples here. And I'm going to give you a few minutes. And we have a sum product here in row 2, a sum function in row 2, a product function in row 5, and a sum product. And go ahead and try it and put it in the green cells that you see there after you read the text. And then the answer without formulas are in column M, so you can check to see if it's there. And I'll give you a few moments to go ahead and work these problems, and then I'll work them. The tricky part on this, Carrie in her deviousness, in the question in cell C2, it says only use the blue and yellow cells. So I see some students, a small minority, that want to add E, F, and G to instead of just E and G2. So it's kind of, you got to pay attention to what's there as you're answering the question. Okay, I'm going to start working with the sum here, and it says use the sum function to add the contents of only the blue and the yellow cells. Do not add the contents of the orange cell. And since I know the function, I don't have to go look it up. I'll just start typing. And there's the blue, comma, the yellow, closed paren, and there's my answer. So as I've got the cell highlighted, you see the function up in the function line up here above the A, B, C, D, E, F. The product, and since I know the product function, I'm going to do a little bit different. I'm going to, what you can do, I got 4 numbers, so I'm going to use an array, and all you got to do is slide across and then put a closed paren, and then you get your answer there. So instead of individually selecting the cells, because my recommendation to my students, if it's over 2 or 3, go ahead and do an array, because if you have a group, and I've had folks do this in the Excel class, and we've got 20 numbers, 4 rows of 5, they try to type each individual cell. If they miss a comma, if they put a wrong number, put the same one down twice, they're not going to get the right answer. It's a lot easier if you can use array when there's more than about 3 numbers. The sum product, it says you've got each different type of candy has a different price. Use the sum product function to calculate the total purchase price of your shopping cart, and then format. And we're going to formats coming up in a couple seconds and a couple slides, but I'll go ahead and do that. Format your answer in dollars and cents because you're buying something. So basically, you see here I've got 2 arrays. The price per item is right here, and the number of items is right here. So it has the same dimensions which I had on the slide. So what I want to do is get a function which happens to be sum product and multiply the price times the number of items. And the way I can do that, and I know it's sum product, so I'm just going to type it. I got to spell it right though. And then array 1 is the price per item, putting in a comma, and then array 2 is the second. So then I can go ahead and put my parens, and I get $98.27. I already had it pre-formatted, and we'll talk about the format, like I said, all the different ways you can do it, the different methods. But that's the basics functions that we teach the first week and then reinforce throughout the class. Any questions on some product or sum product?
Hey, this is Carrie. I just have a comment.
Go ahead, Carrie.
Which is that some product really should have two arguments. It should be the first row is its first array is its first argument, and the second row is its second array is the second argument. If you just put one array in there, it will give you a numeric answer, and sometimes students do that. So the thought would be that if you are going to do the sum product, you got to recognize that you want this in the context of a shopping cart situation where you want to do, you know, the first element, like the first number of items times the price of the first item plus the second number of items times the price. So it's a long-winded way of saying you need two arguments for this, two arrays.
Right, correct. Good point, Carrie. Okay, now, like everybody wants to know about, we're going to go back to Algebra 2 from high school. Hierarchy of operations. And if you're not seeing the screen, just let me know, because sometimes my computer takes a while to update on GoToMeeting. But what I've got on the left is a hierarchy of operations, and you read from top to bottom and then left to right. So in the hierarchy order, and these are in our videos as you see in the box down below, anything in parentheses it does first, and then it does exponent second. This is how Excel works them. Finally, it gets into multiplication, divide, and then addition and subtraction. So I've got three formulas on the Excel template, and we'll work through them. And I kind of show you some of the things that at least I've seen with some of my students, and I've included these two formulas because they're not as straightforward, and so the student has to think. We don't ask them to know about the break-even point. They'll get that like in econ, decision-making, economic decision-making, and other finance courses, and required samples. Boy, Carrie, did I miss all these? But at least to show the operator order and how we can do hierarchy of operations, because we want the students to be able to take that equation in their textbook and translate it so Excel can calculate it. So let's go ahead to our template again and go to the operator order worksheet. We'll start from the top, and I started with the simple one, line in row 1. A line is often graphed using the equation y equals mx plus b. Code a formula to calculate y equals mx plus b for the following parameters and put the answer in your green box. So go ahead and do that, and the answer should be 739. And as we've got this, we've got our m value in the blue cell, the x value in the orangish red, and the b value in the yellowish orange, and then the answer is in the green cell, yellow. This one is fairly straightforward. So we go ahead, and I sometimes put, just to kind of set it out, my m. Then I put them in parentheses. Don't need it because by the hierarchy of operations, it would do it. And I'll show you that without the parentheses in a moment. Times x, and then plus b. So you see the equation, E2 times F2 plus G2, and it comes to 739. But in this particular case, you really didn't need the parents because it's going to work from left to right. So it's going to do that hierarchy. It's going to do the multiplication, division first, and then the addition and subtraction. So for this particular problem, it's going to do the multiplication first, E2 times F2, and then add G2. Now the break-even port's given by the function here that you can see in cells C6 through 8. B equals F over 1 minus the quantity B over P, and where we describe what each point is. And then the whole goal of this is, again, is to use an equation to operator order to find B. And let's go ahead and do that in that green cell in I7. You should get 3691. And remember your parentheses, and when I first type it in, I will go ahead and go through the most common mistake, and I don't know if it's the same for Carrie, but the most common mistake I see on this problem in the homework. Okay. So get equal F divided by 1 minus B divided by P, and that equals, oh, not the right answer. Folks forget put parentheses around the whole denominator. So if I went back and gone through this and put another set of parentheses, you see them up in the command line up at the top above the C. I'm adding a left parent before the 1 and a right parent to cover the whole denominator, and there I get the right answer. So parentheses are key with the hierarchy of operations here in Excel. And any questions on that one? Okay. Required sample size for time and motion. We've got the equation here, and go ahead and code it in cell I-23 where the N is. We want to try to find the sample size. It should be 9.62 if you've done it correctly with the hierarchy of operations.
And this is Carrie. If I could just add one thing, you generally can't go wrong with too many parentheses. Like if you're not sure how the order of operations is going to go, you can always put in an extra set of parentheses to make sure it goes the way you want it to.
Yeah, that's why I actually, Carrie, see more students in the Y equals MX plus B not use any parents. I just like this so I can translate what I've coded to what the problem is there. So absolutely good recommendation. And I think the biggest thing I see here is folks get everything within the parentheses right, but forget to square it. So let's go ahead and try to code this. So I have my numerator, which is Z times S. I'm going to divide that by open parent H times X. I got ahead of myself. Sorry, folks. Why is it? Let me try this again. I got ahead of myself, and you see how I got the wrong answer. So I'm going to go back up here to the command line times. Why it's not letting me do that? Okay, so when you do something wrong, Microsoft helps you out. I'm just going to type it in, which is H23. But what I want to do, I could multiply it by itself, or I could go ahead and put a set of parentheses around the whole thing. And then we'll learn this next week, but you can write that down again, or the uppercase 6 is a caret. That's the power. So I can go ahead and do that and square it. You see I've got the right answer. So I've done enough mistakes in there, and hopefully you can see, it's remembering those parentheses like Carrie said. I see students that leave off the numerator parentheses and the denominator parentheses and just put the whole thing like this, and you see that answer is not correct. And it's because it's going left to right, since multiplication and division are at that same level in the hierarchy. So it's E23 times F23 divided by G23, then multiplied by H23, which is 521. So like I say, too many parentheses is never a problem here. If it makes sense to you and you've got it in the right format. Any questions on operator order or hierarchy of operations? Okay, formatting. I'm not going to do all formatting. You'll have some example problems because there's decimal, there's percentage, there's currency, accounting, and I'll show you the difference between currency and accounting, date, scientific notation. I'll show you where you can go do it. It's in the number section with buttons on the pull down tab, which is the bottom of this top area here. Then there's the number section by this general. There's a pull down menu, and there's also a more area that you can go through, or you can right click format cells and do it from there. And I'll show you all these in Excel before we do the problems on this worksheet, so you know where you can go to do all these things. So first of all, we go to the home tab. If I want to make this a percentage, let's change this one, because I always go back, because that's the one I'm going to have you do later. All I got to do is hit the percentage button. If I want to undo that, I've got it there. You can go here, and this is accounting number format. It's not currency, it's accounting, and you can do English United States, English United Kingdom. There's different options there, other different formatting. But let me show you. Here is accounting, and the big difference is you still got your dollars and cents, but your dollar sign is all the way left to where the accountants like it. But if you made this, and here's the pull down menu, and I'll come back to that in a moment, currency, the dollar sign is right next to your numbers. So let me go back to accounting, and then we go to currency. So you can kind of see the difference here in the format. It's whatever is needed for the problem, whatever you need to do with that. It's still going to add, subtract, multiply, and calculate any way you need the same. So you have accounting, you have percentage, and you can see you hover your cursor over, you can see what it is. You can put a comma when you've got just straight numbers like you have down here. If you want to, it won't be dollars and cents. So let me take off. You can, let me show in this one, increase the decimal place. You see I just went 2 to 3. That's what this button is, 3 to 4, or you could decrease the decimal places, which is that button. So some quick buttons to do things are in these 5 here. If that doesn't cover what you want, you've got general, which is no specific format. You just want to have the number there. If you want to have a number, it will go ahead and put it with decimals. Currency, accounting we talked about. You got short dates. These are quick links to them. Long dates, time, percentage, fraction, scientific notation, and text if you want to format as text. And there's more number formats, as I mentioned in the slide here. And you get to this the same place as if you went to format cells and you took the first one. It's the same thing. You can go through those same ones you had up here in the number box on the home page. You can go down the list, but sometimes there's more options to pick from as you go through there. So those are all the places where you can do formatting. And what I've got here is 6 quick questions on formatting. It gives you an example, and then go ahead and format to look like the answer in column I, and then I'll give you a few minutes and then we'll go through them. Need a few more minutes, or are we doing okay? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do question 1. It says we want this general number 12000 to be in comment, so it reads the thousands there, so with a comma. So I usually just go to this button right here, comma style, for 1,000 separator, and there it is, but it's not the answer I want, because we want no decimal points, so I've got to go ahead and delete the decimal points. You got to, sometimes you do more than one, but that's in the same format as what the question's asking. Question 2, we just want like what we had question 1. So let's go ahead and get rid of the comma. Somehow the comma doesn't work backwards. I keep forgetting that. So I go to a general number, and there it is. 0.123, I want 12.3%. It's only got 12%, so I'll go ahead and add a decimal to make sure it matches what the question is asking for. Scientific notation, where did we find that? We went here to the general pull down arrow. You see scientific. There it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoops, yeah, 1, 2, 3, or 12, 3, 4, 5 is 1, 2, 3 plus e to the 4th. Now we're going to go backwards. We have scientific, so let's go ahead and get a number. It doesn't have the comma, so we'll go ahead and add the comma, and we didn't want the decimals. Just a little playing around to get it in the format that the question asked. And finally, to make this dollars and cents, and we did say specifically in here currency notation. So just go ahead and hit currency, and there you go. It's in currency formation. Any question on formatting? Okay, the next part is conditional formatting, and this based on the surveys and the voting last year is an add-on to the course that we introduced in the course, and it's a way to highlight data. And because of the preview capability in Excel, I can go ahead and do that so you can see what it looks like. And I'll show you where to go to get conditional formatting. It's on the home tab when I go to the Excel sheet. But you can highlight numbers that are greater than, less than, between, equal to, top, bottom, average. You can use data bars that are gradient or solid fill. You can do the color scales. You can do icons if you like icons, and you can manage and clear rules there. So those are kind of all the capabilities you have, and when you get the file, I've written down what each one does, but let's go ahead and show you what it is within Excel. So I have the final answers to the questions here, but I'm just going to show you, highlight this data set here, and then there's the conditional formatting. It's in styles at the top of the home tab. And let's go to highlight cells rules. You can see here you got greater than, less than, between, equal, looking for text that contains certain text. If you got a date in there, duplicate value. So let's go ahead and pick greater than, and it came up with kind of a default. It picked 53, and then you can go ahead and change that. Like I can say greater than 14. You can see it changed the numbers. And you can go here on the right. You want light red fill with dark red text, yellow fill. It gives you some examples, or you can do a custom format. If you quickly want to see your numbers are greater than, you can go that route. And it's the same thing if you want to go through less than, between, equal. You just enter your values between two numbers and how you want it. It's a good way to highlight your values quickly. The next down is top bottom, and that you can put the top 10 items or the top 10%. And Carrie and I have equation in there, top 10%. I see my students doing the top 10 items instead sometimes, because they just see top 10, but you can do bottom 10, above average, below average. If you want to look at a set of who's above average in your class based on the midterm or something like that, you can do that. If you want to look at the top 10 items, it picked, and once you get in there, if you want to only look at the top 5, you can change that. You can change the number, just 10 is default. And then you can change what color and everything you want. to highlight those cells, how it stand up and show it and display it for you. And it's the same thing for all the different values of top, bottom, and average. Your data bars, you can do a gradient fill. And let me go to, and it just kind of shows based on the value how much of it is there. Now that maybe look kind of, the numbers are kind of there, kind of hard to read, and I just did gradient. Well, I could go through and do shaded, but still even like that, you can still see the numbers and it makes it a little confusing. So what you can do is you go to manage rules, edit the rule, and you can just show the bar only if you don't want the text. Maybe you don't want, you're showing something that you want to show the class, you don't have any names, but here's the spread of distribution. It doesn't have any values, it doesn't have any names associated with it, but you can kind of see the spread of values of your data. If you decide you don't want that or going through, you can always go back to clear rules from the selected cells and you're back at the start. But that's the, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, this is Carrie. I just wanted to chime in a little bit. Kirk, great thought with the data bars. Those are especially useful if you have a single column of data, like maybe 20 students, and then everybody's score on the midterm. So if the data is in just one column and you want to see easily, you know, which numbers are biggest or smallest, or like if you were doing budgeting and you wanted to see where the biggest numbers were. So a single column of that can often be a really good use of those data bars.
Yeah, I had a nice single column for the other training, but this I just use these. So yeah, it's a very good point, Karen. The one that I first became aware of and use when I started teaching the decision models course is the color scale. And we want to take our data set, especially when you're looking for net present values. We've done some what if analysis, and I go and you can highlight over these, applies a color gradient range to the cells. The color of each cell falls within that value, and this is green, so that'd be the hard ones. High ones, yellow will be the middle, red will be the bottom, or you could do, in this one, it's just the opposite, red, yellow, green, if you're trying to highlight, you know, whatever you're trying to highlight. You got white. So you get all these different variants that you have here, but even when you pick one, as you can see here, see, I just gave you the answer for this one when you do the question. It doesn't have just straight greens, yellows, and reds, because you can kind of see this is a little bit different color than this 14, because a little bit lower, closer to red, and you got this green is a little bit darker than this green here, so there is a flow to kind of show variation with that. But if you want to show you have a data set, you can do this in a single column too, so it's just what you're trying to highlight is available for a color scale on there. Finally, the last one here in control conditional formatting, I have, some people like to put icons in. So instead of numbers, you can get rid of the text like I showed you before, but you can put arrows in on high, medium, and low. You can do the same thing with stoplight charts. You can do with a check, an X, or an exclamation point, you know, or just straight doing it like this. There's lots of different things you can play with if you want to do icons. So that was just a quick overview of the conditional formatting. It's available. I gave you one answer. But go ahead, there's only 2 questions here. Go ahead and do it yourself. And we want to do this first array, D2 to K9, show a green, yellow, red color variant. So the large numbers are in green and smallest numbers are in red. And then the second one is we want test scores, so it displays the top 10% in green with a green fill with a dark green test. The rest remain white. So go ahead and do those. Okay, so this one I've already done for you as an example. It's your color scales, and I said green, yellow, red. So this one comes up, it's a green, yellow, red. We do that. Way to highlight the data, like I said. And this one down here was one of the secondaries went over with the top 10%. So we got top bottom rules. We want top 10%, and it comes up. We said top 10. We could do a different percent if we want, but we want 10. But we said green fill with the dark green text. So we had to change it, and there you go. So it's a way to highlight the data if you want to highlight your data set, and you can always clear. Okay, the last area for this session today is on referencing. In relative, and I'll show you some examples of this on the next worksheet. Relative, the cells will change when you copy and paste that formula in a new cell, and they look for the relative position of where the new cell is, and it will take the values associated in that formula. And I'll show that here. It's kind of confusing. And it will just be like the column and the row. Absolute, you can copy that formula anywhere. It's going to go to the same original cells all the time. And those are annotated with a $ in front of the column and the row. If you want mixed notation, either the column or the row doesn't change, and you'll see in the first one, the $ E4, the column wouldn't change there, and then in the row wouldn't change with E $4. So let me show this visually to you. You got this for background. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these. But first of all, we got the absolute reference. And what I've done is B3, which is 1, and D3 is 1. So I've got the formula here. So I'm going to copy it down. I'm also going to copy it over to another row and then copy it down. So you see, because they're absolute, no matter where you put the formula, if it's got absolute in, it's going to come to all these cells every single time, no matter where you're using that cell, if you have it as a absolute reference. Now, it's kind of sometimes a little tedious for me if I'm doing like C4. Oops, there's nothing in C4. Let's go B4. And that's a relative, and as I drag it down, you'll see it will change to what B5, B6, and B7 is. But if I want to make that absolute, an easy way to do it is a shortcut key. You put your cursor in between, and then you hit your function F4. That will make it absolute. And I haven't found the way to do a mixed absolute, so you may just have to put a single $ in. But at least if you want total absolute for columns and rows, and you see here that now it's no matter where it is, I dragged it down, it's going to be the absolute.
Yeah. Hey, Kirk, this is Carrie. There's one thing to try, which is if you push the F4 once, you'll get the $ on both the F and the 4. Push it a second time, and you should get a mixed one.
See, I'm even learning something here. Oh yeah, it does switch to. You just keep hitting.
Yep. And then just keep toggling it.
Right when you want.
Yep, it'll toggle through all the options.
Good, good. See, an old person can still be taught new things. Okay, so let's take a look at the next one. This is relative. It's just B11, which is 1 again, and D11, which is 1, and the equation is 1 + 1 is 2. Well, let's drag it down like I did before. And you see it's now taking B12 plus D12 because it's a relative reference. It doesn't have that $, and so it's changing to be the relative position. What this is looking at, this one says add in this row 11, the B and the D. This one says relative, same relative position, but now we're in row 12. Same relative position, but now we're in row 13. And if we copied this over to here, it's all zeros. Why? Because you moved one column over, and the B plus D is now C plus E, which is there's nothing here and nothing here, so it's the relative position. So when you're using relative and you copy them on down, you just got to remember, is that work? Is that what you want to do? Do you want those? Is that information the sales you want, or do you really want it absolute? And then I've done the same thing here just to show you. No, I didn't. Should be mixed. I changed this last night. See, I'm showing you where I'm doing my mistakes, and so you guys can see it. Okay, so in this particular case, the B value didn't change, so it's still going to be 1. I mean, the B column didn't change, but we allowed, and that should be the, so this really, because it's the same relative position as before, your columns haven't changed. But if we copy this over to here, the columns haven't changed, just the rows. So you see this row here is 0 because there's nothing in that row. So the columns are staying the same. So it's still relative, the columns over there, but the rows have changed and we dragged it down, so that's not a problem. But if we do the same thing here, where we have the columns, the rows staying the same, but the columns changing, you can see in here as I dragged it down, it's only looking at row 28, which is got 1 plus 1, so that's staying the same all the way down because the row's there. And if I copy it over here, it's still looking at row 28, but now it's looking at C or E. So hopefully I haven't confused you too much, but it's basically the absolute is going to the actual cells it was with the dollar signs, but if it's relative, it's going to change, and it depends on if you want to do that. So let's practice this for a last little equation in our last few minutes here. I've got, and I'll kind of work it with you since we're running out of time, but we got our sales figures here. An example here, monthly sales sales as a percent of sales, cumulative sales, and the cumulative sales as a percent of total sales. Okay, so what we want to do, we've got this new data set and the answers are to the right. We got this new monthly sales. Let's go ahead and total it and get total sales. And that's a simple sum that we learned before. And we're going to take the array, as you see here. So we get 305 sales across the year. So now it says monthly sales as a percentage of total sales. Well, the monthly sale, to copy down the formula and make it easier, we want to do relative. So we go here equals F20, but then we want to go ahead and use this total sales here, but because we want that to stay the same as we drag it down, so we'll go function F4 to make it absolute, and then we can drag it down. And you see here, as I go through the equations, the relativeness changed the month, but kept the denominator, the total sales, the same. And if we go ahead here and just copy this formula out, this will be 100%. If I make that 100 or percent. So showing some of the differences here between relative and absolute values. You see my numbers match with what the exam answers are here. Now let's figure out cumulative sales. So really want to take, it's going to be January. That makes sense. And then it's going to be January plus our cumulative to date. I mean, February plus our cumulative to date. So there's a relative. We're adding February, but let's add what we already had. And if we do that, and then drag it all the way down, you see we got 305 total for cumulative sales. And what we've done relative-wise, is relative references, is taken the monthly sales and then adding the previous number, which is the previous month's cumulative sales. Finally, cumulative sales as a percent of total sales. So we got cumulative sales, we've got over here, we're going to very like a monthly sales, but we got to take this value this time. And then we can take the total sales we found from cumulative sales, or I allow taking the total sales here from monthly sales. It's the same number. But what I want to do again is I want to make this an absolute so I can drag it down and get the, so there you go. And I know it's like 2 minutes left, 3 minutes left, but it kind of shows you, and you'll have the master files. You can take a look and play with it. References can be fun with quotes around it. You just got to learn and make sure you're doing it the same way, because I see a lot of folks that do relatives, they copy it down and they get the wrong answers because they really want it absolute. So if I could go ahead to the last slide, it's just give you an upcoming. And again, I'll try to show the shortcuts like Jim said in the chat as much as we can as we go through here. But we're going to talk about some basic statistics. Range names can be fun, but it really makes it easier if you're trying to add or subtract or work with the same data set time after time. Look about charting, and then something Amy and I, Carrie, put together some best practices when it comes to charting. And then, and you had, for those faculty were there, had a little bit in charting and the finding and displaying data. We'll take a look at that. We'll get into simulation, some what-if analysis, some time value of money for economics and finance, and finally a little bit way of organizing data through sorting and filtering, things of that nature. So I know I'm at my end of my time, but any quick questions? Carrie, anything I forgot you wanted to add?
No, I think it was great. I just want to say thank you all for coming, and just to add our words of encouragement that this stuff takes practice, and the only way to practice it is to put in the time on task. So you guys are doing a great job.
Have to laugh at your comment there, Greg. There's so much new nowadays in the set, and I look forward to, Carrie and I look forward to the next one on stats, as you can start summarizing your data. But if you got any questions, and I asked that was completing midterms and homeworks and that, give me to the beginning of the week, and either Emily or I will send a note out when all the files are on Blackboard, on our new Blackboard shell, that you can go back and review the stuff. Emily, any